This week, I have a different kind of episode. I am talking with Sal Hanna, who is a recruiter for the Milton Hershey School. This is not a typical school, and the role Sal recruits for is not a typical role you would think of when you think about schools. Cue the music.
Welcome to the Repurpose Your Career podcast, brought to you by Career Pivot. This podcast is where those of us in the second half of life come together to discuss how to repurpose our careers for the 21st century. Come listen to career experts give you proven strategies. Listen to people like you tell their stories on how they repurpose their careers. And finally, get your questions answered. Your host, Mark Miller, has made 6 career pivots over the last 30 years. He understands this is not about jumping out of the frying pan into a fire, but rather to create a plan where you make clear, actionable steps or pivots to a better future career. Are you ready to repurpose your career?
Welcome to episode 253 of the Repurpose Your Career podcast. My name is Mark Miller, and I'll be your host every Monday for discussion on what it's like to repurpose your career. So this week, I have a different kind of episode. I was approached by the Milton Hershey School, a representative from the Milton Hershey School, and I am talking with Sal Hanna, who is a recruiter for the Milton Hershey School. Let me read you a snippet from their website. The Milton Hershey School is a cost-free private school for boys and girls in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Milton and Catherine Hershey founded the school in 1909 with money they earned from the chocolate company. Since then, the lives of more than 10,000 children from working-class families with lower income have been transformed through high-quality education and a structured home life. As some of my longtime listeners know, I took time out of my career to teach high school math in an inner-city high school in Austin, Texas. I did this in my late 40s. I was often approached by people saying they wanted to do what I was doing when they retired. Sal does not recruit for teachers, but he does for house parents. I want you to listen to our discussion and let me know your thoughts. However, before we get to the episode, let's have a word from our sponsor, Career Pivot. The Career Pivot membership community continues to help the members who are participating in this project grow and thrive. This is a community where everyone is there to help everyone else out, figure out what they want to do in the second half of life, and then make it happen. Let's hear what Russ had to say about being part of the community.
At first, I got a lot out of the community, just meeting new people and finding folks in my phase of life, and that was really encouraging. As I've been in it a longer time, I'm now realizing that I have a community that knows me to some extent. And this is people who know me in a new way. And that is something that I've really come to realize that it's kind of, I don't really want to part with it because I do know that community and over the last several years that I've been part of it. It's valuable in terms of support. It's also valuable in terms of accountability. And I find that, I always get questions asked to me. I also learn things. For example, the idea of pivoting to do some online appearances is an idea that came out of a career pivot. We had an evening where we talked about how to do that. I'm also teaching classes with something called Get Set Up, and a member of the Career Pivot community kind of recruited me to come teach classes with Get Set Up. So it was a good contact. I'm over 60 and heading toward the middle of that decade, and I find that we are a unique group. Some of us, like me, don't ever have plans on retiring. We just want to find work that we love for the rest of our life. I find Career Pivot has people in there like that. And, it's kind of hard to know where to find that. They're also from all over the place, which I appreciate the diversity of experiences that people bring to the community.
I am recruiting new members for the next cohort. If you are interested in learning more about the endeavor, please go to careerpivot.com/community. Now, on to my discussion with Sal Hanna. Welcome to the Repurpose Your Career podcast. I have an interesting episode for you today. I have Sal Hanna, who is a recruiter for Milton Hershey School, a residential school in Hershey, Pennsylvania, for 2,000 pre-K through 12th grade girls and boys from families of low income at no charge. The school's mission is to break the cycle of poverty by providing excellent education and care. So, Sal, welcome to the podcast.
I'm glad to be here, Mark.
So, Sal, what do you do? And who do you work for?
Yeah. Well, so Milton Hershey School, as Mark said, is a residential school for students pre-K to 12th grade that come from a lower income backgrounds. We're located in Hershey, Pennsylvania, the sweetest place on earth. So if you've never been out to Hershey, definitely need to take a visit. A lot of family-friendly fun activities to do in this area. So the school was actually founded by Mr. Hershey and his wife, Catherine, who founded the chocolate company. So if you've ever bought a Hershey chocolate bar or Hershey's product, you've supported Milton Hershey School because they started the school in 1909 and had established a trust to have the school run in perpetuity to impact the lives of children from a lower income background. So yeah, our mission is to help break the cycle of poverty. So we partner with families. Families send their children, their youth and children, to Milton Hershey School. We are a residential boarding school. We provide whole child wraparound services for them. So our model is a house parent model. So if you think of a residential school, you think of, oh, they live in dormitories. Nope. We have a married couple that live with 8 to 12 children in their home, and they provide the daily needs and care and nurture for the students, anything from meal preparation to taking them to activities, to making sure that they are doing their homework, hygiene, a chore program. So these house parents are instrumental in raising the children, in addition to our private school that the students attend, best of class education. We have phenomenal teachers that really are helping students succeed. That wouldn't really have an opportunity if they were in their home communities. We have a lot of activities that students can participate in, from sports to visual performing arts, to art, just kind of drawing, anything that you can imagine. We have a lot of AE programs, agriculture stuff for students to be involved in, you name it. We really try to have a mission to work with students from all backgrounds, whether they're from the city, whether they're from rural poverty, but that's really is the common denominator. And again, it's cost-free. Families pay nothing to send their students to Milton Hershey School. It's incredible.
So, Sal, what do you do?
Correct. Yeah, I guess I forgot that part. So currently, my current role is a recruiter. I help to recruit our house parenting staff in primarily. So let me back up a little bit, Mark, because prior to that, I used to work in Michigan at a large camp and conference center. And as I got promoted in that industry, I was further removed from the day-to-day interactions with the children on the campus there. So I was actually offered a promotion where we would relocate to a home on a lake, a beautiful home on a lake in Michigan. It's just an amazing place that we could have been. And my wife and I just really thought a lot and hard about that. And I'm like, our heart is really to work with children, especially children from a lower income background. And so we moved from Michigan to Hershey, Pennsylvania to assume the role of house parents that I alluded to earlier. So we cared for senior division girls, so 9th through 11th graders were in our home, and we provided their daily needs. We had 2 daughters of our own that were elementary age, in addition to the 12 young ladies that we supervised. And then I transitioned out of that house parent role to become a supervisor because I just love really pouring into people and kind of being a coach and a teacher and a trainer. And so I was able to do that in that role. As a supervisor. And then I was able to kind of bounce around and move to this role as a recruiter. I just feel like I have a big skill set, and to be able to recruit the right people for the house parent role, knowing that I did the role as a house parent, supervise the role as a house parent, and now I get to recruit and share about the opportunities, the good, the bad, everything that comes into that. Hopefully we can find people that have that same mission mindedness, want a purpose, in their career to serve in that unique role of a house parent.
So what is the typical demographic of a house parent?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's a very intergenerational group of people. We have a minimum age requirement of 27 years of age. So we have couples as young as 27 years of age that are kind of starting off new, in their marriage. But 3 years is the minimum that they have to be married. But all the way up to couples that are, near retirement age, 60, 65. But, they're like, we still have a lot to give. Our careers were really, in the corporate world, and we did a lot. We built our own nest egg, but we really want to give back and do something different and have meaning and purpose to, the last 5-10 years of our life. And so we have a lot of couples that kind of take that career pivot, if you will, to the role of a house parent.
For, we'll say, the more mature adults, couples that come to you, what are the characteristics that you're looking for? Yeah,
so a lot of people that in that stage of life think, oh, I didn't do anything working with kids, I can't do that. Really, having your vocation not involved with children, that doesn't matter. As long as you really have a motivation to want to impact the lives of others, specifically children, youth, again, pre-K to 12th grader. So, anywhere in between. Some people have a really, high skill set to work with the really little ones. Some prefer, those more adult conversations with the senior division students. So again, it's really more that passion. Maybe they volunteered with youth in a community organization, maybe a church function. Maybe they were a mentor through Big Brothers Big Sisters or something, or they may have coached. If they have children of their own, they may have coached some youth sports. So just any experiences that they may have really relate well to the school. But I think the most important thing that is critical for couples to understand is it's a very unique lifestyle. So a lifestyle that they're used to now and what they're comfortable with. If you transition to a role of a house parent, it's unbelievably different. And it's almost like you're exchanging what you currently do now, and you're getting a completely different lifestyle. Because couples work pretty much 24/7 while they're on duty with the children. When the children are in school, that's time off for couples. So I think the easiest way for people to understand some of what the role is you're a paid professional stay-at-home parent for the children. And it's a full-time job for both the couples in the relationship.
Yeah, one of my curiosities is I actually went off after I had a near fatal bicycle accident back in 2002. I went off to teach high school math in an inner city high school. And one of the challenges was all my kids basically came from poverty. Mm-hmm. And I had to realize that I was dealing with a new culture. I was dealing with a culture of poverty. And I grew up as a middle-class white guy. And most of my kids were mostly Hispanic, poor, lots of single-parent households. And I'm presuming you have a similar demographic.
Yep. Yeah. Our students all come from that, like you said, that lower income environments. In terms of ethnicity, we're very mixed. We really try to have a balance in terms of ethnicity so that any student that comes feels like they belong. But yeah, it is a very unique role to work with students from a lower income background. If you're not familiar with that, if you haven't done that before, we provide 3 weeks of training to the house parent couple so that they can feel equipped and confident and prepared going into the role. Because like you said, it is a very different paradigm if it's not where you're comfortable or coming from.
Quick interruption. If you are enjoying this podcast, please rate it and review it on whatever podcast player you are using. And more importantly, would you mind telling a friend? Thanks, and back to the podcast episode. How do you find candidates?
That is the magic question. And if somebody has a formula, I would love to hear it. Because to find one person that is enthusiastic to want to move in residence with children 24/7 is hard enough. To find two that want to do it together, that makes it equally as challenging. And also with, some of our requirements of, having to be at least 27 years of age, and then, only 2 children, house parents can only have 2 dependents of their own living with them, our subset gets smaller and smaller that we are trying to recruit. We rely heavily on advertising through the internet, and just different advertising means that way. We're on different job boards that are mission-minded, focused, in that regard, so that people can find us that way, that are typing in careers with youth, careers with purpose, things of that nature. Sharing word of mouth is really the biggest thing. We have a pretty robust employee referral program that helps garner some staff. But it is a challenge. And so I just appreciate being able to share this opportunity with some of your listeners, because they may be excited about it, or they may know somebody. That my other question that I always ask people: if not you, then who? Because there are people that want to foster, or thought about foster care, or thought about adoption. Those kind of mission focused, or people in that realm function and do really well as house parents.
So how many house parents do you have today?
So we're the largest residential school in the country, and we have a pretty unique model. So we have roughly 240 house parent couples that work on our campus. We have about 180 homes that the house parent couples live in, and those that don't live in homes serve as flex house parents that go into homes whenever house parent couples have their 3 days off. A couple goes in and kind of acts like a substitute teacher, if you will. They're substitute house parents living in residence, caring for them. So about 240 couples. So in total, about 480 individuals in the house parent profession at Milton Hershey School.
And what kind of turnover do you have?
Yeah, so we just have kind of natural attrition based upon the sheer volume. So it's about between 10 and 11% attrition. Now, recently with COVID, as we hear that it's the Great Resignation, we've had a kind of uptick in resignations in our house parent role. So definitely are definitely trying to find couples that want to come and serve. So, but our average tenure is between 6 and 8 years in the house parent role. So it's a pretty good longevity for folks that stay in the role, and that really speaks volumes for how the institution really cares for and supports staff and students at Milton Hershey School.
Yeah, I got to imagine there is a 1 to 2 year kind of getting into the groove.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I know when I was teaching high school, it took me well over a year to truly understand who these kids are, what their problems were, where they were coming from, and be able to go, okay, I get it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And for them to really gain your trust, you really have to be in there for a long haul. And we would want people that are consistent. A lot of these children from their backgrounds, they're used to adults just coming in and out of their lives and just kind of being half-hearted and half there. So, the more that we can find folks that want to stay and be committed, the better success that we have in their future outcomes.
Can you give me an idea of how much you pay people to be a house parent?
Yeah. So for the house parent role, the starting salary is $84,000 for the couple. Now you may think, oh, that's not a lot. But if you think about folks that work in human services work, it pays it's very competitive, and if not on the high end in that regard. But in addition, there's no cost for housing. Housing is free. Utilities are free. Maintenance is free. When I was a house parent, I had a light bulb that went out. I just called a work order in, and they came and fixed the light bulb. It was even in your own personal apartment. I never have that type of service anywhere. And so anytime we had maintenance individuals come into our home when we were house parents, fixing our washer or dryer or heating, I let the students know, okay, they come in, they're doing this for free. When you have your own apartment, how much would this cost? And the mechanical gentleman or lady would say, oh, probably $500. And the students are like, what? So trying to teach life skills is really, a big part of what the house parents do with the students. So yeah, $84,000 for the couple, free housing, free utilities. It's also a full-time role, so you get benefits, medical, dental, vision benefits for both spouses. And then after being here for a year, the school will match a 403B retirement accounts as well. And then there's educational benefits that after being here for a year, the school will, if you want to get another bachelor's degree, master's degree, PhD, the school will pay for that as well. Now, one benefit I love is Hershey Park, a world-class music park is down the road. As a house parent, your ID gets you into Hershey Park for free. Who wouldn't want that? It's incredible. I love it.
That's good. Yeah, I remember as a kid growing up in New Jersey, going to Hershey, Pennsylvania, and getting a bag of, I was way too young, getting a bag of Hershey Kisses. But anyway.
Yeah.
So there are equivalent kinds of schools like you across the country. Is there an organization where if people say, well, I don't want to move to Hershey, Pennsylvania, but this is of interest, how might they find these other schools?
Correct. Yeah, there's an organization called Encore that we're a part of, Coalition for Residential Educators. And so they would have a list of other organizations or institutions that do similar type of work. Again, yeah, you said around the country. Yeah, there are others around the country that would do similar work. And I would just encourage folks, find if this type of work is for you, really do your research and find, that company that really syncs with your values and who you are as a couple, what makes you tick, because that's really important to find that fit for the organization. Because, I think Milton Hershey School is great, but it's not for everybody. And I don't want to try to make it out to be for everybody. But yeah, definitely people need to do their research, have conversations, whenever they have their interviews. Interviews are a two-way street, as they're getting to know you, you need to get to know the organization and don't read into what you think they're saying. Really try to nail them down with the right, the answer so that you have a good understanding of what you're getting, especially if you're relocating to a different part of the country. You need to make sure that you feel comfortable and confident and can make that a good commitment.
So out of curiosity, how have you changed your interview process and hiring due to COVID?
Yeah, so during the height of COVID, when everything was in lockdown, we had to do a pivot. People are career pivoting. We had to do a pivot with our hiring process and do everything completely virtual, completely through Zoom. So Zoom was a big platform that we used for our interviews. For our on-site, we typically fly the couple out to campus on site, and they can spend significant time in the student home, have a tour of campus. We had to pivot that and do that virtual as well. So we had our house parent couples that helped lead that with iPads, taking an iPad around to different rooms of the house and out to the carport and seeing the van. So it was interesting. So it made it definitely a little more challenging to do that. But there are some couples that went through the whole entire process and worked at Milton Hershey School without ever stepping foot on campus because of that. Now, since things have lightened up, we are able to have couples back on campus because we feel like that's such a critical part of the piece, to see a student home, to see house parents interacting, to see campus itself, that we felt like it does better service to our candidates in the candidate experience to be on site.
I think it's also really important for them to understand who they are going to be dealing with, right? Yes. Who the students are.
Yes, correct.
Is this a demographic that you really want to work with?
Yep. Yeah. And asking those questions is critical. And some people were like, well, I've never worked with youth from a lower income. Like, what do you suggest? I recommend, can you shadow somebody? There's an organization near you. Can you volunteer at a school? Is there a Boys and Girls Club that you might be able to help out with that may work with a similar population? So that at least you have that frame of reference to see, okay, they're challenging, but we can deal with that.
And how do the kids get selected?
Yeah, there's a pretty rigorous admissions process that the students go through. So again, the common denominator is they all come from lower income. That's the one thing they have in common. And so living in a group living environment with 8 to 12 others, a unique living experience. So students have to be able to function well in a group living environment. And so we have, special process where the students will come on campus and we do evaluative things to make sure that they have propensities to be able to function well in a group living environment. In terms of their education, students make like any public school with students that, we are just happy that the student graduated. We have some of those students at Milton Hershey School to the other end of the continuum to this student is very successful, very high achieving, that go to an Ivy League school after they graduate, and anywhere in between. That's the population of kids that we have. So it's very similar to, a mid-size public school.
I got involved at different times with KIPP and several other charter schools. And one of the key pieces is when you have parents who care and they're saying, I want my kid to get the best opportunity, usually those kids are the best behaved and the hardest working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we strive really hard to partner with the parents and the families that send the students to Milton Hershey School. We don't take custody of any students. There's always a parent. There's always a sponsor. Maybe CYS has custody of students that send the students to school. And so our house parents are critical in linking back to the families to make sure that they're communicating things the students are doing well, successes, but also, hey, we had a hiccup along the road. How can we as a team make the best decisions for the success of the students? And we have just a whole lot of resources on campus. Milton Hershey School really functions like a mini community. So we provide wraparound services. We have healthcare professionals that take care of their healthcare needs, dentists, psychologists, social workers, and other administrators. We provide clothing for the students. So we have clothing, we provide hair care. So we have barbers and stylists in that regard. So we have our financial people, our safety and security people to care for them. So any job function that you find in a normal community, you'll find something very similar at Milton Hershey School. So any staff member that work at Milton Hershey School, if they're not in direct care, really are here because of the mission of the school. So from our dining room workers to our groundskeepers, in part, they're here because they want to have students succeed in life. So that's just really a neat thing to be a part of.
Well, Sal, when Natalie reached out to me, and I get pitches 20 a week, and I very rarely ever respond. But you have such a I thought, this is such a unique story. I thought, this might be there's going to be some people out there who are going to be interested in this as an Encore career. Mm-hmm. And it's not like it doesn't pay anything. It actually pays fairly well if you're in a position, because as you say, you provide housing, you provide healthcare, you provide an awful lot. So let me finish up with this. What does a typical house parent's week look like?
Yeah. So what's beautiful also about the role is there's a lot of autonomy that house parents have within the structure of the school. And that's one thing that my wife and I really treasured is we have the ability to set our own program, our own schedule, but there's still a consistent practices that we have to follow and let our supervisor know. So typically, Monday through Friday, when the students are in school, house parents are getting up, helping the students wake up in the morning, preparing some sort of breakfast, whether it's a cold breakfast or a hot meal, having announcements in the morning, and a devotional, some sort of positive message to help the students get, in the right framework when they go off to school. Oftentimes, house parents also help the students do chores or have the students do their chore programs in the morning so they get that done and feel accomplished in their day. So the students go off to school. House parents have unscheduled time from 8:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. So they're free to go off campus, make their own appointments, have lunch out with others in the community, play games, do that time during that 8:30 to 2 time frame. At 2:00, they come back on duty. A lot of them, house parents check emails, make sure that any chores that the students did, make sure that those are doing well. They might start early meal prep. Then students start arriving back to the home around 3 p.m. And then you're probably hanging out with them. Maybe you're outside playing basketball, inside having a conversation. Maybe you're having the students helping you with dinner prep. You may have other students that are in an activity. Maybe they're at a soccer game. Maybe they're doing a band performance. And so you're taking kids, your other students in your home to watch those, because like you would do with a family. And then you have a shared meal together. That evening meal is a meal that all the students together with their house parents would eat. Study time, where students are focused academically. Then you're doing making sure they're getting their showers, and then there's bedtime. So that's pretty structured throughout the days, Monday through Friday. On the weekends, it's more laid back and unstructured. House parents won't have that early morning to afternoon off. Maybe they'll take them on an activity off campus. House parents also manage a budget, so they can take students. When the school provides money for outings such as going out for ice cream, bowling, to the movies. Maybe you're taking them on a hike, just to get them out and experience, things in life. Again, anything that parents would do with their own children, we would ask that house parents do with Milton Hershey School students. Sunday mornings, we have a chapel service on campus that one house parent or both would have to take the students to. It's a non-denominational service where students are, hearing again, a message that would resonate with them to help them, succeed and persevere in life. Sunday night is a special time set aside for family time as a student home. That's times where you're going to have all your students together for sure. And maybe you're doing some sort of team building or bonding activity. Maybe you're watching a movie, or maybe you're doing a service project of some sort, just to really kind of be together as a home, because it can get pretty busy throughout the week.
Sal, if someone was interested in coming to work at Milton Hershey School, how would they do that?
Yeah, our website has a wealth of resources. MHS, Milton Hershey School, mhskids.org is our website. If an individual just types in Milton Hershey School into a search, they'll find us pretty easily. We are on all sorts of social media channels as well, so they can find Milton Hershey School and follow us and learn more in that regard. If our careers page has all the application information, so they could apply online through our portal, and we'll reach out and connect with them if they have an interest. People can reach directly out to me as well. On our careers page, there's chat with a recruiter, and that information comes to me. So there's information that we want to share with individuals, and we do kind of informal kind of conversations about the role. We also have webinars. If people are interested in the house parent webinar that happen typically once a month. We have on our website, they can go to the careers page and sign up for an online information session where they will hear more in depth about the role and have a chance to ask questions live during those informational webinars about the house parent role.
And by the way, we will include all those links in the show notes, so you won't have to dig around for them. Sal, this has been great. Thank you very much for being on the Repurpose Your Career podcast.
Thank you, Mark. It's been a pleasure. I love sharing about Milton Hershey School. Thank you for your interest in learning about it and being willing to share the wonderful mission that we do with your audience.
You're very welcome. Let me know if this is the kind of episode where I offer alternatives to traditional career paths is of interest. You can email me at podcast@careerpivot.com. Take a moment, go to careerpivot.com and sign up for the weekly Career Pivot Insights newsletter, which is sent out every Sunday. You'll get a weekly update on this podcast, white papers, and new blog posts. While there, don't forget to check out the Career Pivot community, which can again be found at careerpivot.com/community. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Look for Career Pivot on Facebook and LinkedIn. You'll also find me on Twitter at Career Pivot. Thank you for listening all the way to the end of the Repurpose Your Career podcast. You will find all the show notes at careerpivot.com/episode-253. You can also subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Overcast, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, and lots of other places where podcasts can be found. In fact, this podcast can be found on the Repurpose Your Career podcast channel on YouTube. Hope to see you next Monday for another episode of Repurpose Your Career podcast.